The marketplace in Phuket was a sensory overload. Colorful fabrics hanging from stalls, the scent of spices heavy in the humid air, and vendors calling out to passing tourists. I was there on a backpacking trip through Southeast Asia, camera in hand, trying to capture the vibrant chaos when I spotted him. A tiny capuchin monkey, no bigger than a kitten, chained to a wooden post behind one of the stalls. His chocolate brown eyes were dull with exhaustion, his small body hunched in defeat. A crude metal collar circled his neck, connected to a chain that gave him barely enough room to move a foot in any direction. I stopped dead in my tracks. The monkey caught my gaze, and something in those eyes cut straight through me. A glimmer of awareness, of suffering that was unmistakably conscious and deep. "How much for a photo?" the stall owner asked, noticing my interest. "Only 200 baht. You can hold him." My stomach turned. I'd heard about the wildlife trade in tourist areas, but had never confronted it face to face. This monkey wasn't a pet or an attraction. He was a captive, torn from his natural environment and reduced to a prop for tourist photos. "Is he yours?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual while rage and heartbreak warred inside me. The man nodded proudly. "Very special monkey. Very friendly." But the monkey wasn't friendly. He was terrified. As the man reached toward him, the little capuchin shrank back, his eyes widening in fear. His hands, so human-like with their tiny fingers, clutched at nothing, a nervous gesture that spoke volumes. I walked away, but couldn't stop thinking about those eyes, those hands. That night in my hostel, I researched frantically. I learned about the illegal wildlife trade, about how baby monkeys were captured after their mothers were killed, about the cruelty of keeping highly social primates in isolation. And I discovered something else, a wildlife rescue organization with an outpost in Phuket. The next morning, I returned to the market with Sanjay, a local staff member from the rescue center. We found the stall again, the little monkey still chained in the same spot, though today he was dressed in a garish doll's outfit that made my heart ache even more. What followed was a tense hour of negotiation. Sanjay explained to the vendor that keeping wild capuchins was illegal in Thailand, that authorities could confiscate the animal and find the owner. There was resistance, anger, denial, but Sanjay was persistent, alternating between gentle education and firm reminders of the law. I stood slightly apart, catching the monkey's gaze occasionally. Once he reached out a tiny hand in my direction, before pulling it back quickly when the vendor turned toward him. Finally, money changed hands, a compensation that the rescue center sometimes provided as a last resort to save animals in immediate distress. The vendor unhooked the chain from the post, but left the collar on the monkey's neck. "You take," he said gruffly, holding out the chain to Sanjay. The moment we were away from the market, Sanjay carefully wrapped the trembling monkey in a soft cloth and placed him in a specialized carrier. "He's severely malnourished," he said grimly, "and likely traumatized. But he's young, maybe a year old. There's hope." At the rescue center, a veterinarian gently sedated the little capuchin to remove the collar. The skin beneath was raw and infected. He was dehydrated, underweight, and had several parasitic infections. They named him Manu, meaning small. I extended my stay in Phuket, visiting the center daily to check on Manu's progress. The transformation was slow but remarkable. The dullness in his eyes gradually gave way to curiosity. His infected wounds healed, leaving only faint scars. He began to eat properly. Fruits, vegetables, and specially formulated primate food that helped him gain strength. Most beautiful to witness was his introduction to other rescued capuchins. After a careful quarantine period, Manu was placed in an enclosure adjacent to 2 female capuchins. The first time he saw his own kind after what must have been months of isolation, he stared in frozen disbelief. Then he approached the mesh divider and reached out one small hand. On the other side, an older female reached back. 2 weeks later, I watched as Manu was integrated into the small capuchin group. His hesitation lasted only moments before instinct took over. He moved toward the females, making soft vocalizations. They responded, grooming him gently. When he curled up against the older female that afternoon, every person watching had tears in their eyes. "Will he ever be released to the wild?" I asked Kai, one of the caretakers. Kai sighed. "Probably not. He was taken too young, never learned the skills he would need. And capuchins aren't native to Thailand. He's likely from South America, brought here through the illegal wildlife trade. But he'll have a good life here, with others of his kind. And someday, he might be part of our education program, helping people understand why wild animals belong in the wild. On my last day, I stood outside the enclosure, watching Manu play with another young capuchin. His movements were fluid now, confident. When he noticed me, he paused and came to the front of the enclosure. Those eyes that had first caught my attention were bright now, alert. He tilted his head, studying me, then bounded away to rejoin his companion. It wasn't a perfect ending. Manu would never swing through the canopies of a rainforest or live in a natural troop of capuchins. The illegal wildlife trade would continue to tear animals from their homes for human entertainment and profit. But as I watched him disappear into the branches of his enclosure, chattering happily to his new family, I felt a profound sense of peace. One small life had been transformed, one suffering creature given a second chance. Sometimes that has to be enough. I left Thailand the next day, but a piece of my heart remained behind with a small monkey with healing hands and bright, curious eyes. No longer dulled by despair, but alive with the joy of being what he was always meant to be. Not a prop or a pet, but a monkey, connected to others of his kind, his dignity restored. The world is full of broken things we cannot fix. But sometimes, if we're lucky, we get to be part of mending one small piece. And in that mending, we find something essential and healing in ourselves as well.